I've been meaning to do a video about this for a while now. I did the video about Huel a while back, and in that I mentioned about the recipe boxes I use, about Hello Fresh and about Gousto. And so I thought it was probably worth actually talking about them and doing a bit of a comparison between two, because over the last 3 years I've used both of them fairly regularly. I started initially just using Hello Fresh, then I switched over to Gousto, and then I switched back to Hello Fresh, and I used Gousto consistently for about a year, and then I've started using Hello Fresh again more recently. And it's just interesting looking at the difference between the two. Recipe boxes, if you don't know, recipe boxes, it's a box full of recipes and all the ingredients. So it's a really simple system. They send you all the ingredients that you need to make your food. They send it sort of semi-prepared and selected. They send you the right amount, so it's fantastic. What I'd say it's really good for is, I like trying lots of different foods. I like trying different cuisines, and I have found in the past, I remember I did gyoza. I decided I wanted to make gyoza, and so I had to find a Chinese supermarket to be able to get all the ingredients, quite specialist ingredients, and they only sold the gyoza skins in packs of 100, and I ended up with about 80 gyoza skins that I never used, because eating 100 gyoza is quite difficult. Whereas with the recipe boxes, they do lots of different cuisines. They do Indian, they do Chinese, they do South American, they do African, they do, yeah, all sorts of different cuisines, and they provide you with exactly the right amount of ingredients to be able to try it. And what I found is there have been a few that I've done and made and gone, I really like that, and I've gone out and bought the ingredients so that I can do it again and again and again, because I know at that point that it's good. So that's what the recipe boxes are. There are others out there, Mindful Chef, Abel & Cole, Riverford, which seem to be much more. So Mindful Chef is a very wellness based one. Abel & Cole and Riverford, this is all in the UK obviously. Riverford and Abel & Cole are much more organic based. But Gousto and Hello Fresh both seem to be pretty straightforward, middle of the road type recipe boxes. So the way that works is you go online, either there's an app, there's the website, and you pick out your recipes. Now we tend to get, so Emma and I get 4 recipes, 4 meals in a week, and you pick your 4 meals and you choose a delivery slot. In terms of choice of the meal, that's where the first differences start to happen. So Gousto has 40 different recipes that you can choose from every week. Hello Fresh has 21. Now 21 is still a pretty good choice, but what I would say is so with Gousto, there are 10 vegetarian options, there's 10 dairy-free, 10 gluten-free, there are 4 completely plant-based ones last week, and actually I think consistently most weeks there's plenty of plant-based. If you're vegan, if you're vegetarian, if you're pescatarian, if you're flexitarian, whatever it is, there are choices, there are plenty of choices. Hello Fresh has 21. They do still have the options in terms of, there are always plant-based, there's always vegetarian, there's always pescatarian options, but just not as many. I think if you were going completely plant-based, you'd struggle to be able to get, say, 4 meals a week, 4 different meals a week from Hello Fresh. There's also, within in the options, you can get quicker meals, so they'll always tell you how long anything's going to prepare. Gousto do a 10-minute rapid one, I think they call it 10-minute express. With those ones, because, and you think, how can you make a meal in 10 minutes? Most of them use either microwave rice or quick cook pasta or things like that. So it's a little bit of a cheat, but it's still nice recipe. It's still nice pasta and nice rice. But I know that Hello Fresh make a bit of a fuss about the fact that you're not actually cooking some of the rice. You're just heating it back up. Hello Fresh's quickest ones are 15 minutes, and they're great. Cooked completely from scratch within 15 minutes. And actually the quick recipes are fantastic. Emma and I do it in an evening if we've been out for the evening and we just want something quickly, and it works really well. We normally get one quick one a week. The other thing that I've started seeing, so both of them now do premium options, so you can get there's often like a steak option, so you'll get a sirloin steak with nice sides and bits and pieces, and by being an additional option, they charge you a little bit extra per, I think it's normally like $3.99 per recipe, just as an additional premium option for those premium ingredients. Often, yeah, if there's salmon involved. So they do a lot of fish, but a lot of the fish is freshwater fish, lots of bassa, things like that. And then if you want salmon or if you want tuna, then it's a premium option. And then HelloFresh has also started doing this thing called Dinner to Lunch, which I need to look into properly, but it looks like a really good idea, where they specifically supply you with enough food that it will provide a lunch for the day after. You then pick your delivery slot with Gousto and HelloFresh. Both of them offer a completely free delivery option. Gousto's free delivery option is during the day, and then there's a paid delivery option as well, either before work or in the evening. The free one we've never had a problem with. We're in a house here rather than a flat. I think if you're in a flat it might be a bit of a nuisance, because they will happily leave it in a safe place for you. So if you live in a flat that's got some sort of area to leave boxes, fantastic, great, you can just do that. The goods are packaged in such a way that they'll stay fresh for the whole day. So actually, if they drop it off at 9 o'clock in the morning, you're not getting back until 7 o'clock in the evening. I think they're rated to stay fresh for 18 hours, the way that the cool bags are packed. I'll come on to that in a moment. But yeah, there's no worry about having to be in to pick it up. The subscription thing, HelloFresh, you have to have a subscription for. You can change the subscription, you can skip a week, you can add in a week, you can set it that you have a meal box every 4 weeks, every 3 weeks, every 2 weeks, whatever it is, but you have to have a subscription. And I would say that's where Gousto has a slight edge over it. Gousto do a completely ad hoc version, so you can get the subscription model with Gousto, but you can also do it completely ad hoc. So we don't have a subscription with Gousto at the moment. We often just think, sort of around about Thursday the week before, we think, do we want a box for next week? And you can just select your box and order it. I think it might be marginally more expensive to do it as an ad hoc, I mean like £1 or £2 per week, to do it as an ad hoc rather than a subscription, but it works really well, because it means that I have been caught out before where I've forgotten to cancel or forgotten to skip the week for HelloFresh. In terms of delivery, yeah, so that's what I was saying. They both come with recycled wool cool packs, so it's basically a recycled wool bag with water blocks, frozen water blocks. I think they're called ice, Ben. So yeah, come with ice blocks in it that keeps your stuff cool all day. The packaging is slightly different between the two. Well, from the outside they're both just branded boxes, but the way that HelloFresh do it is they bag up each meal's ingredients into one bag. So when you open the box, you're just presented with these sort of carry away paper bags that are full of the ingredients for one particular meal, which makes it much easier for prep, because you can go into the fridge, grab that bag, and you know you've got everything in there that you need for that particular recipe. With Gousto, they put everything in the bag, still fairly safe and secure. It's not, I was going to say it's loose in the box, it's not loose in the box, but it's in the box, and you put it all in the fridge, and then you have to pick out each individual. I know this is first world problems, you have to actually go and pick out the ingredients, but it adds a couple of extra moments actually having to work out which ingredients you need for which recipe, whereas with HelloFresh it's all kind of done for you. Also with packaging, HelloFresh seems to avoid using eggs. I haven't seen eggs in their products for a while, mainly because shipping eggs turns out is quite difficult. We had 3 eggs in a Gousto box last week and one of them was broken. I've had broken eggs from Gousto in the past. I'd say that I think the HelloFresh packaging is slightly more secure. I've never had a problem with any breakages in HelloFresh, whereas with Gousto, occasionally a packet will have split, or an egg will have broken, or a vegetable will have ended up bruised. But I would say for both of them, customer service is absolutely fantastic. So anytime I've had a problem like that, I've just contacted customer service and they've immediately credited my account with a meal, or I think there was one time where there were 2 meals that were no, in fact, so there was 1 meal that was damaged, and then there was 1 meal that had 1 item missing. You just credited me with a free box. So sometimes it does happen. It's happened with both HelloFresh and Gousto. Sometimes there's an ingredient missing, I guess just human error when they're packaging the boxes. Normally it's something really inconsequential like an onion, and you should probably be able to go and get an onion, and that's fine. I know it's annoying because you're paying for a service where everything should be provided, but what's really good is if you contact them, they'll sort of credit you, which means that frankly you've got a free meal and all you need to do is go and buy an onion. And then you've got the recipe cards. And the recipe cards for both of them, really straightforward, very easy to follow. Even if you're not a regular cook, regular chef, they plan everything out incredibly well. So they will say the first option is, yeah, put on the oven boil a kettle of water, start getting your veggies prepped, and they stagger everything so it all makes sense together, so you're never thinking, what stage do I need to do this, what stage do I need to do that. As always with anything, read the instructions before you start. They're really simple to follow, and they make sure that actually it's going to be as quick and as easy. Timings are pretty much spot on in terms of how quickly things cook and how long each recipe takes. So if it says it's going to be a 45-minute recipe, it's going to be about a 45-minute recipe, so it's really good from that point of view. Gousto cards are slightly smaller and are punched to fit in a binder. So we've got, I think we're now onto our third binder full of recipe cards, and we've got one that we use really regularly, one that is kind of if we're looking for something a bit different, and then we've got one that we might not make, but again, I've never had a bad meal. I've never had a single meal where I've gone, actually this just isn't nice. But you know how some stuff you just go, yeah, that's fine, but I don't feel the need to make it again. So that's in the third binder. The Hello Fresh cards are bigger. They used to do bound ones. They had a really clever binder at one point that stood up on its own. It folded in and it had a flap that would tuck under, and so you could stand them up, and the recipe cards were all portrait rather than landscape, and so you could have it on the side so you could read it really easily. They seem to have done away with that, and they've now just got sort of bigger A4 style non-punched ones. I don't know whether there's a binder, I don't know how. Those ones are a little bit more fiddly to store, but again, first world problems. Oh, I can't store my recipe cards as easily as I used to. Yeah, that's how bad this is. So in terms of the ingredients, the HelloFresh ingredients are better ingredients, I would say that. The Gousto ones are not bad. This is not a criticism of Gousto, but the HelloFresh, they really make a point of the fact that their fish and their meat are organic and free range. Their vegetables are, as far as I'm aware, organic and free range. Can you get free range vegetables? But they're organic. And if they're not, for any reason, they will let you know very transparently. They're very transparent about the sourcing of their meat. They're very transparent about the farms that they use for their meats and various bits and pieces. Gousto, the ingredients, as far as I'm aware, they do on occasion talk about the origin of ingredients, but they seem to be less ingredient focused. But I'd say they're more meal focused and less ingredient focused, and so you've got the balance between the two. One thing that I really like, HelloFresh, if there are any recipes in their box that use garlic, they'll just send you a whole garlic head, clove, bulb, that's the one, garlic bulb. Gousto will send you a separate clove, so if the recipe says Pip has decided to go mad for him. Gousto, on the other hand, if they have a recipe that uses garlic and you need to use 2 cloves, they'll send you 2 cloves. So in a little paper bag you get sort of 3 or 4 cloves, which is fine and makes perfect sense and there's no wastage, but it just seems, because we all know if we've cooked, sometimes you get cloves that are big fat cloves and sometimes you get the tiny little spindly ones, and so sometimes you do seem to get some cloves that are, you're thinking I need 2 cloves, but this looks like a half a clove together. So it's, yeah, stuff like that. It's just a little bit different between the two. And in terms of recipes as well, a couple of just weird little oddities. Gousto are super generous on garnishes. Like they'll often give you some herbs chopped to sprinkle over the top, and some, so if it's an Asian dish, some peanuts to be able to crush and sprinkle over the top. And they will give you so much of a garnish that you sometimes can't see your meal under the garnish. HelloFresh doesn't seem to do garnishes so much, so sometimes the meals look a little bit, not unfinished. Well, yeah, just it doesn't have the presentation. And again, I guess this is going back to being ingredient focused versus being sort of meal focused. So I'd say the HelloFresh ones, the presentation isn't always quite as perfect. Garnishes maybe aren't quite as perfect. But when it comes to things like sauces, that's actually, in terms of packaging, when I said that I've had a few breakages, one of the things that breaks most in Gousto are when they've got these little sauce pots. So there will be, I think that was the thing, hoisin that broke a couple of weeks ago, and they'll send it to you in a little plastic pot type thing with a lid. On the other hand, HelloFresh send you these like baby food pouches type thing, so it'd be very difficult to break them. They're also much more generous with the wet ingredients generally, so if there is a yogurt garnish or a dip or pour over sauce, you get far more of that, either far more sour cream or yogurt or creme fraiche from HelloFresh than you do in Gousto. And so it's just little differences. I think they're both good, and this is what the conclusion I'm coming to through making this video. They're both actually very good. There are just slight differences between the two, and it depends what's important to you. The recipes have changed over time slightly. I have found that as I've been using them, the carbohydrate portions in the meals has gone down significantly and the protein has gone up. Whether this is because they're realizing, whether it's feedback from the people that they're selling it to, whether it's this idea that we're now realizing we're eating too many carbs and not enough protein, changing social norms, changing dietary requirements. I do feel that the meal balance is better now than it was to begin with. It was very carb heavy to begin with, but now I feel that the portion size, and I feel that the portion ratio between carbohydrates and proteins and vegetables is pretty good now. Actually, I think it's spot on. What I would say, I think the portion size in HelloFresh is more generous. There's definitely, you get bigger portions. I never come away from the Gousto meals feeling hungry, but I always feel a bit fuller from the HelloFresh ones, to the point where often there's actually a little bit left over, so you can, Emma sometimes takes some of the leftovers for lunch because she doesn't eat a huge amount for lunch. It probably wouldn't be enough left over for me for lunch, but it is for her. And then there's this whole dinner to lunch thing that they're starting to do, which is quite an interesting idea. So now we get on to the important bit, money. How much do they cost? Gousto is $34.99 per week for 4 meals for 2. So both of them work out slightly cheaper per meal if you get 4 meals. If you get 2 meals, it's the most expensive, obviously up to 4. So $34.99 for Gousto, or it's $41.99 for HelloFresh for 4 for 2. So between them, £7 difference between the two. What's that? I'm trying to do maths on the fly. 80p difference between the two. I think it's somewhere around about that per meal per person difference in cost between the two. It's not a huge amount when you look at it from one point of view. From the other point of view, £7 difference. If you were doing this every single week, that's £350 over the year. More expensive to go with HelloFresh. It's one of those clever tricks that people use where they go, oh, you could buy this for just the cost of a Starbucks coffee every single day, and then you realise that it's £2,000 a year or something ridiculous. Yeah, 80p per meal per day difference in the cost. I do think that the ingredients are definitely better from HelloFresh. The meat and the fish is definitely better. I would say that I think the difference is, you can tell the difference between the quality of the ingredients. But which do I use? I use Gousto more regularly than I use HelloFresh, but I do still use them both. With Gousto, because of the choice of the meals, because there is so much choice, 40 different meals every single week, I think you can more consistently get a great set of meals, great set of 4 meals every single week. With HelloFresh, when there are good meals, those meals can be better than the Gousto meals. But the problem is, because there's less choice, finding 4 great meals every single week can become a little bit more challenging. If you were only getting 2 or 3, you might be able to find 2 or 3 great options much more easily, but getting 4 I just find a little bit more of a challenge, whereas I never find choosing 4 great meals from Gousto a challenge. What I would say is the weeks when I do choose HelloFresh, they are better than the standard weeks from Gousto. But if I were to use HelloFresh every week, I'd say the average week might be slightly below Gousto. So there's just more variability from week to week with HelloFresh than there is from Gousto. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. The other thing that I love about Gousto is the fact that it's ad hoc. It's much more pay as you go. So when I'm doing this, when I'm choosing to use Gousto, I'm choosing to use HelloFresh. With Gousto, I don't have to do anything until I decide I want a box. With HelloFresh, I have to remember to actually look through, decide if there's anything I want, and if there's not, I have to remember to skip it, or if I don't want it, I want to have to remember to skip it. And so that is a little bit, you have to remember to do that. So I'd say essentially, neither is neither is conclusively better than the other. HelloFresh is the more expensive, the ingredients are better, and sometimes the meals are significantly better. Gousto, more consistent, cheaper, and you can always guarantee that you're going to get a good box. What I am going to do is I'm going to put a link down below for a couple of affiliate links for HelloFresh and Gousto. This video is not sponsored, because frankly I think either of them would be a little bit mad to sponsor me to do a video comparing them to the other one. But there's an affiliate link down below for each of them. I think the HelloFresh, you get £20 off your first box, I get £20 off my next box. Gousto, it's £15 off your next box, £15 off my next box. Because there's actually £7 difference between them, I think it still works out. I think it means that they almost come to then the same price. Now there's still £2 difference between them, so the HelloFresh is still going to be £2 more expensive, but they're virtually the same price at that point. With the Gousto one, I think there's a limit. Only 20 people can use it a month, so I might be being really optimistic, thinking that more than 20 people per month will want to use that code and will watch this video and see my reviews. But if you get a notice telling you that you can't use it, try again in a few weeks. You should be back up and running and everything will be fine. Other than that, thank you very much for watching. If you've enjoyed this video, please like it. If you have enjoyed this video and you'd like to see more videos, then please subscribe. The channel is a little bit of a mix of everything. Got a couple of these reviews, so I did one on Huel, I've done this, but then it's also bits on photography. There's a massive how-to guide for the whole world of photography and videography, and it's a bit of a vlog and my adventures and a bit of travel. So it's a little bit of everything. You never quite know what you're going to get. So thank you very much for watching. Enjoy the rest of your day, enjoy your dinner, and bye bye.